What's up, fellow lords of gaming? Welcome back to the channel. So let's talk about Crimson Desert's newest patch, version 1.05, that dropped last night. Pearl Abyss is doing a great job as a developer, listening to the players. So this is not a small bug fix patch. That's what I thought we were going to probably get, because I thought it was going to take them more time. But nope, that's not what we got. We got Pearl Abyss adding new systems for rematch, blockade, and it's going to affect how you interact with the world for content that you've already cleared. So that matters because it's one of the biggest problems inside of games. You know, you kind of get bored after you liberate areas, defeat bosses, and clear any of the major threats. There's nothing left for it to do as you grow in strength, but Pearl Abyss is already trying to address that. So let's talk about the two biggest additions. That's rematch content and then the reblockade content. And in simple terms, rematch is going to let you refight your bosses, and blockade is going to bring back conflicts to any of the liberated strongholds in the open world. So on top of that, we got new legendary pets, new creatures, shop updates, combat fixes, controller input improvements, UI improvements, graphic updates, and a lot of bug fixes across PC, console, and Mac. They're knocking it out of the park, and they're just continuing on. This is great news for us. So let's walk through what's actually changed, and then we'll talk about how those things affect your gameplay. So the first major feature is the rematch content. So this is probably the biggest addition, I think, in terms of how players are going to engage with builds inside of the game. You're basically going to be able to re-fight bosses that you've already played before. So you can return to those locations. There'll be a memory fragment that's on the map. Once that memory fragment becomes active, the boss is defeated. They can then go into the world and the mini map, and you can also go in knowledge and those memory fragments, and then bosses will reappear. The smart quality of life decision, because it means you don't have to wander around trying to remember where every major fight happened. The patch says that you can attempt these rematches with either Cliff, Unka, or Damien, which is just absolutely fantastic, because some of the bosses will have been cleared by Cliff because they were story-driven content, but now those are not locked to just one character, which also gives the game a lot of replayability, in my opinion. So if you're different, you know, playing out with different builds, everybody's so focused on Cliff right now, but at some point people might switch into Damien or Unka because they have different styles of play as well. Now we can start talking about diversity of builds with Unka. I mean, the Abyss artifact feature still needs to be addressed because it's hard to build out 3 characters with the way you know, content is kind of currently driven, and you basically just leveling up Cliff. So there's currently 2 rematch modes. This is really cool because you have Reminisce and then you have a Resonate. Reminisce is going to make it so that way you just encounter the bosses the way you first encounter them. So it'll be at the level where you encounter them, and that's it. The game just remembers that original form where they were there. Resonate, however, is going to change it so that the boss is going to be at your current level. I'm pretty sure at some point you've already fought in like some of the bosses from chapter 4, like Crowcaller and these kind of guys, and guess what? You're like, I already beat that boss. I was already at that level. It's going to probably feel easy compared to where you are now with leveled up gear, but that's going to completely change. So that's a really good mode. I think most players are probably going to look forward to that. However, you know, this does help out on design, because now you can go out and test build diversity, tell players whether or not early builds still are viable for them, or different builds will be stronger for them towards the end game. It's going to be a really good feature for testing out build diversity with all the items that people are finding around the world. So this is a good system. One of the most frustrating things of any RPG is just not having anything to do after you complete some of these boss fights. So rematch currently supports 69 bosses. That's a strong starting point, and the patch note says that the system will continue to be improved in future updates. So this is not the final version. This is just basic, like, foundation. So one big thing to understand, though, is that rematch doesn't offer separate loot. So this is not like you're going to be able to refarm these bosses and get new items and things like that. This is just basically practice, challenge, and a replayability system for the bosses. Like I said, I think the place where it most impacts is people who want to test out build diversity and see how different builds will impact the bosses, or they just want to have fun because they enjoyed the battle of some of these boss fights. Personally, I think it's the right move for first version. We'll see where they iterate on this as they go forward. The second major feature is going to be the reblockade content. I think this has more of an impact than rematch mode. What this is going to do, and understand this is a first iteration of it, is that it impacts how the open world impacts your playthrough, because now what's going to happen is that any content where you were liberating areas have the opportunity to basically get recaptured. So If I'm in an open world and I've completed a stronghold, I have the ability to go into my settings and change how the gameplay is going to happen there. So we have 3 different modes: stable, conflict, and war. So on stable, the reblockades will never occur. That's like similar to the current system. Now the default setting in the game is called conflict. So in the default setting, it means that a reblockade will happen intermittently. It has to meet certain triggers and conditions though for this to happen. So like a log save, a sleep, a rest, or something like that, and then that reblockade will rehappen. War means that reblockade will happen frequently. So if you've completed the game and you're around just experiencing things, but you want to have those fights, this is going to be helpful. This also is going to be helpful for those Abyss artifacts because you gain through experience. So now I have more content to complete and clear. That means I can start farming out some of those Abyss artifacts to maybe build out Damien Unka and the likes of those. Good player choice feature inside here. I like that overall. There are only, at this point though, 13 factions that can carry out reblockades across only 23 forts and quarries. So remember, this is just the starting point. So it's probably not going to have that much of an impact right now because it's only 23. There's so many quarries, so many forts across the game. So they plan on increasing the number of participating factions, and they plan on increasing the number of targeted strongholds and stuff like that in the future. So just look at this as almost like beta launch for the reblockade feature. This is probably going to start to shape up and look more like Shadows of Mordor, because the last part of this is important. Once the enemies reblockade, what you're going to look at is that they're going to basically have the power to grow stronger. And that's important because I don't want to just go back to reblockade and just feel like I'm just like easily taking out everyone. I want to feel like it's a challenge when they reblockade. And that was one of the benefits of a game like Shadow of Mordor, was like, hey, you know, I could go back to areas and I had reason to re-roam areas of the map because I might have had a new stronger boss that appeared or something like that. So that's really, really cool. I like it. So practical advice inside of here is like, just log into the game, go to your settings, go to gameplay, and you'll notice the feature there, and you'll be able to check each one of the items, whether it's stable, conflict, or war. Just be sure that you do that. Next up, the thing I want to talk to you guys about is pets. They added 2 new pets. So we got the Iron Eagle and the Hyacinth Macaw. These should look really cool. The note says that the Iron Eagle and the Hyacinth, they only appear after certain conditions are met. They wanted to stray away from giving out spoilers, and I'm thankful for that. They've also added a new creature called the Mountain God Boar, which also has certain conditions that it can be met. So now I know players are going to be jumping in. They're going to be looking for these new pets, and they're going to be looking at ways to tell you how they appear. So I like these patch notes are not fully spoiling these type of interactions at all, because that could be just terrible in my opinion. I've been trying to stay away from showing any of the story content in my playthroughs, especially because, you know, I don't know who's watching, and somebody might be wanting to play the game, and that might be a distraction for them buying the title because they're like, well, I just experienced everything that the game has because you showed it to me on stream. So I like that. They also added a new shop in the game. So now there's new shops where you can buy disguise items. They also included a new item called the Lightning Bolt Plate Boots that can be bought from Bari's shop. But you have to defeat a boss and wear a certain ring inside the game. They also littered the world with gold bars that have a 5 silver value. That's not like a lot of money, especially when you look at the cost of some of the things that you have to pay for, but it's definitely a good benefit overall. They also made improvements to some of the pets, and they added a new pumpkin head into the game. So that's really wild. So Goose and Ducks, they have their pet interactions improved. Things like gardening have also been improved as well. One of the bigger features that's probably like just buried into the notes right now is that puzzle hints were made more visible. And so the ruin puzzles like at Caranso, and some of the other areas, they now save your progress after you leave an area. So that kind of matters because nothing kills the puzzle content faster than losing progress because you stepped away or reloaded your game. Now this can also be a problem because I think some of us have seen some things and then we can reset the puzzles, so we'll have to see how that looks. Mission dispatches will also improve, so missions automatically cancel if they can no longer be sustained. That should reduce some of the weird mission state issues as well, like players not being available or whatever. So that's good. They had a number of fixes throughout the game as well. One of the major ones is time consuming, that the progress reset bug for players having interactions with their companions. Instead of, like, you know, sometimes it would happen where you would just you gain 100% trust and then somehow it resets to 10. So now that's not happened. There was an issue that I haven't experienced where legendary mounts were dying. No way to kill an immersion or kill that idea more fundamentally than anything else would have been that. They've also made some improvements to combat patches, so the way you interact with stagger states and stuff like that, it was really annoying. I noticed it with Priscus when I was fighting him. Two issues would happen. He was not entering the stagger state when he should have entered the stagger state, and then on top of that, the worst part was that he was maintaining like his evade cycles and just would not stop those. I streamed my fight against him and it just definitely felt like the game was cheating. Luckily, both of those issues have been fixed. They also fixed the issue where bows were not doing the damage that they were supposed to or incurring the stagger state as well. One of my love fixes that they've put inside here is the use of force current. Right now, prior to this patch, when you're using force current, Cliff would take these huge steps forward and you could fall off of map areas. This mattered especially in some puzzle areas where you needed that force current, like Sky Bloom, I think it was, inside the Abyss. I hated that puzzle because of Cliff stepping forward, but they fixed it, so now he just takes the one step forward as well. So those are overall good fix. They also have continued their path of addressing the controller and keyboard mouse inputs and the preset issues as well. This was perhaps the largest issue with the game, and I think one of the reasons why many players have either given it bad ratings or have said it was one of the worst games that they've played is because the control systems were just terribly laid out. So they're continuing to make improvements on inputs, so thankfully they've done that. They've improved the vault, sit, and lean interactions, so that way now those have different interaction keys as well. And they've made a number of UI improvements throughout the game as well to make things more clear, understandable as well inside the game. I like those. Up next, lastly, they did some of the graphics settings and stability improvements for both PC, console, and Mac as well. So you'll see some of the SDKs were added in there. Some of the sharpness features and stuff like that was also improved. So I think that's a big fix overall, but I don't play on consoles to know exactly how much that's affected overall. So before you check back, so that's pretty much everything in this patch. So just make sure that when you jump into the game, that you're checking out the reblockade frequency under your gameplay settings. Second, check your controller or keyboard presets because they have been resetting. Third, go find a memory fragment, test out the rematch system, see if that's something that you like. But overall, 1.5 is looking like a healthy path forward for Crimson Desert. You know, improving stability, cleaning up any of the frustration progression issues, giving us an ability to re-interact with the world in a meaningful way, you know, giving us a way to earn additional experience and just feel like we're living in a living world. You know, this is amazing to me. So drop a comment, let me know if you're happy with the reblockade and the rematch system. If you're planning on testing this out to test out how your builds work with different things, there's a lot of patch stuff that they do in here. So I'm pretty sure that, you know, you can dig through a lot of this patch and you'll see everything that's still not coming or still not in the game but still planning on coming, and some features that, you know, that I haven't addressed that will probably get readdressed because they seemingly love to go back and fix issues without even telling you that they've been updated. So I'm happy where we're progressing with the game. This is a really good sign that we're getting activity where Pearl Abyss is listening to us. Hopefully it continues on this path. I've seen articles where even the South Korean president is supposedly happy with what, you know, Pearl Abyss has done with its own engine and bringing a game that, you know, at least the large majority of player base is enjoying. This is an absolutely phenomenal game. I don't know how long, you know, people are going to spend their hours inside of it till the next big shiny thing comes, but this has the possibility of being the next Skyrim, the next Witcher 3, the next whatever Red Dead Redemption 2 or whatever open world game that you just absolutely love. And I think it's putting giving us something that, you know, players can really just chomp on. So I hope you guys enjoy it, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, peace.